anytime we talk about T levels, we are talking in nanograms per deciliter for total T. And this is not even factoring in free T, which I'm about to when I talk about this, and I get so heated when I see that this is somehow a sensical argument. What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we are going to be talking about the first openly transgendered athlete allowed to compete in the Olympics. This is a subject that I actually have discussed a couple times now, but more in passing in the May 7th video I posted reacting to Caitlyn Jenner's stance on trans girls competing in female sports. That was not specifically about this one athlete, although I did touch on it briefly because it was a very relevant topic at the time, and even more relevant now because apparently New Zealand weightlifter Laurel Hubbard will be the first transgender athlete to compete in the Olympics. And by the way, as far as the echoing in this studio thing, bear with me while I get it echo proofed. I'm kind of like in the process of transitioning some things in the studio around, so I'm kind of like going back and forth a bit. But yeah, just let me know what you think of the overall. I don't know, the lighting is a bit of a jerry-rigged setup right now. Let me know if this is, I don't know, too dark or like what you think about it. But I'm gonna be figuring it out. And this is, you know, a temporary background. Don't worry about that. So anyways, New Zealand, I got tagged in this post expectedly. New Zealand women's super heavyweight weightlifter Laurel Hubbard, hard to say for some reason, will be the first openly transgender athlete to compete in the Olympics. Hubbard competed in men's weightlifting events before transitioning in 2015, but not at the international level. And obviously this is notable because one of the justification points that it seems to be brought up is that this individual has, you know, broken records as a male. So somehow, I don't know, is that like a point of contention that somehow it justifies the fact that if they're breaking records as a female, it's not that big a deal because they were already breaking records as a male? Is that just a, you know, a point to bring up for the sake of just giving more transparent information, and it's actually reinforcing that maybe it's even more unfair that you have somebody who's such a, you know, excelling athlete even in male athletics and then they transition to female and just fucking shit on everyone? I don't really know, but anyways, it is often talked about, but notably it was not at the international level. 6 years ago, the IOC changed its guidelines to allow transgender athletes to compete in women's sports as long as their testosterone levels are below a required level. So this is mainly why people want my insight, because it's not just about, is this person an individual who should be allowed to or not? Is it fair? Like I think most people already are kind of on the same page that this is kind of just the infrastructure you build up going through puberty. The likelihood that you're not going to have carryover into transitioning to be a transgender athlete competing against biological females, like most people understand that this is like probably not fucking fair. But what a lot of people don't realize is just how ridiculous this testosterone cutoff actually is, which is, you know, mainly where my insight comes in. So I'll be getting into that number specifically shortly, and it's it's pretty fucking insane. On Monday, organizers announced that up to 10,000 spectators will be allowed at each event during the Tokyo Summer Olympics. Don't mind me, just here for the comment section, popcorn emoji. South Park predicted that, crying, laughing face. This will be the downfall of strength and performance-based sports. No, goodbye women's sports, sad. Records will be broken, crying, laughing face. Fucking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clown emojis by Latman _ Power to Lift 1994 with the side chest here. So anyways, I was digging into some of her history to kind of get a backstory, and Hubbard set New Zealand junior records in 1998 in the newly established M105 plus division with a snatch 135 kilograms, clean and jerk 170 kilograms, total 300 kilograms. Let's see. Has spoken against what she calls one of the misconceptions that's out there, that she had been training all her life before transitioned to female, saying that she ceased lifting in 2001, explaining it just became too much to bear. Just the pressure of trying to fit into a world that perhaps wasn't really set up for people like myself. In 2012, Hubbard transitioned to female and became Laurel Hubbard. She began taking cross-sex hormones that year. Hubbard competed in international weightlifting for the first time in 2017 and expectedly started fucking nuking people, winning the gold medal in her first year fucking ever in international competition with a 123 kilogram snatch, 145 kilogram clean and jerk, but for a total of 268 kilograms, a body weight of 131.83 kilograms. She thus became the first trans woman to win an international weightlifting title for New Zealand. Although Hubbard met eligibility requirements to compete, her win sparked controversy with some other competitors claiming the competition was unfair. Athletes that were critical of the decision to allow Hubbard to compete include a bunch of people. So anyways, let's see the total. Snatch 135 kilogram. So her snatch only went down 12 kilograms, as well as clean and jerk went down about 25 kilograms. So that is in the span of going from a junior as a male with like peaked fucking everything, like, and presumably like a somewhat blessed one to have, you know, broken some sort of record, and then transitioning and then having a 12 kilogram lesser snatch and a 25 kilogram lesser clean and jerk. Obviously good enough. And are you retaining some of that, you know, performance advantage from your youth? No fucking shit, you know? Like, you've banked up that myonuclei from going through actual puberty, building up the infrastructure, the bone mineral density, the androgenic signaling, the muscular development, even the motor learning when you're going through the actual like process of embedding this shit in your mind. This stuff is going to be different when you are brought up as a biological male who goes through a full puberty phase. And then, like, this is not an individual who transitioned early. Laurel Hubbard went through and literally broke, you know, junior records as a biological male, went through full puberty, and then in 2012 transitioned. So that was only 9 years ago. So in Laurel's 30s transitioning, so going through not just literally all adolescence, teen years, full puberty, full adulthood throughout your 20s, getting full maturation and even brain development past 25 as a full-blown male, and then transitioning and trying to like argue that there's no performance advantage whatsoever. It's just fucking absurd. And when we look at the actual testosterone cutoff values, you start to realize pretty quickly that not only do these individuals have a giant competitive advantage through the actual infrastructure that they've built, not even accounting for all the other things that come along with full maturation as a male. But in addition to that, the testosterone cutoffs are not what would yield an actual equivalent female hormone profile. Rather, it is equivalent to a low T male, which is still significantly higher than female. So when you look at female hormone levels versus Laurel Hubbard's cutoff. So New Zealand weightlifter will be the first supplement. Blah, blah, blah. So this article, they break it down again. She's competing in 87 kilograms, 192 pounds, over 87 kilograms. Where is the cutoff? Hubbard has satisfied the IOC's requirement for trans women, has met the IOC requirements for athletes who transition from male to female. The requirements stipulate that the athlete must declare that her gender identity is female and can't change that status for sports purposes for at least 4 years. The athlete's testosterone level must stay below 10 nanomoles per liter. So that sounds pretty low, right? 10 nanomoles, like, woo, so low. You know, men probably have hundreds, right? So we're going to convert that in a sec. And I'm wondering, do they use nanomoles per liter as a way to mislead you even further? Because it's certainly not the default measurement that we typically use in our labs. We usually use nanograms per deciliter. You know, anytime we talk about T levels, we are talking in nanograms per deciliter for total T. And this is not even factoring in free T, which I'm about to fucking butt fuck when I talk about this. And I get so heated when I see that this is somehow a sensical argument. Those who transition from male to female, those who transition from female to male are eligible to compete in the male category without restriction. Hubbard transitioned to female 8 years ago at age 35. Before transition, competed in men's events, setting national records, junior competition. blah, 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 blah. So anyways, let's do the conversion. So we have 10 nanomole per liter. We convert it to nanograms per deciliter and we get 288.42. So let's talk about female testosterone levels versus male. So in general, males produce about 10 times as much testosterone as females on a daily basis. Now, when you actually extrapolate this out into like a weekly production, males are going to produce somewhere around, like 50 milligrams of testosterone per week. Unesterified, free-form test. Women are going to produce in the single digits. How that equates to in nanograms per deciliter, in general, you're going to see reference ranges for most labs between about 250 nanograms per deciliter upwards about 950 for men. Obviously, the more expansive and more like, ranges that account for more outliers are going to go from but like maybe like 240, 230, all the way upwards of 1,000, maybe 1,100 in some cases, nanograms per deciliter for men. So we're looking at a ballpark range, let's just say 250 to 1,000. Now for females, we're looking at literally like 40 to 50. Like we're looking at a top tier fucking hyper elite female with high T production would be like 70 nanograms per deciliter. Once you start to get to like 80, 90, 100, you're looking at like super physiological female levels, or at least, not, maybe there's like, again, there's gonna be outlier females who produce that much, like even Vigorous Steve, co-host of the Super Physiological Man podcast. You guys have probably seen it, in passing through the clips on my channel. His wife, I believe, produces like, 80 or 90 or something. She's like, like a hyper responder, like a genetic phenom. But that's not the norm. Most chicks are producing like, 40, 50 nanogram per deciliter test levels. And that would be for like healthy, young, athletic, like high tier women who would be, competing in sports and whatnot. Like obviously the range, it goes as low as like 15. If we were gonna do like the equivalent of what's a borderline hypogonadal man, we're looking at like what, like 250 nanograms per deciliter. What's like a borderline like a menopausal woman is going to be like fucking single digits, dude. And a woman with shitty production or is on, potentially birth control or whatever it is, we're looking at like 50 nanograms per deciliter is like the equivalent if you were going to do like a hypogonadal equivalent for women. Obviously you wouldn't call it hypogonadal, but you know what I mean. So anyways, when it comes to Laurel Hubbard, the IOC cutoff apparently is 10 nanomoles per liter, which equates to 288.42 nanograms per deciliter. So does this sound like a fair number to compare to biological females competing against Laurel who have the constraints of their natural production going upwards of, at best, like 70 nanograms per deciliter total? So we have somebody who is literally at absolute minimum having like fucking 5 times, like around that. Well, let's just say, 4, 5, 6 potentially times as much test as the female she's competing against. Now, this is total testosterone. We're talking about total production too. We're not talking about freely circulating androgens. When you want to look at the reference range for sex hormone binding globulin, now that's a whole different story. This is the primary regulator of androgenicity in the body, is going to account for how much DHT and testosterone is bound up by binding proteins and how much is freely circulating around to tissues to perform actions and anabolic activity, such as building muscle, causing, strength increases, etc., etc. So when you have a 288, this is your total production. When you count the actual amount that is going to be freely circulating to tissues, that's going to be determined by your sex hormone binding globulin majorly, which in males is much lower than in females. Much lower. There's a significantly higher SHBG level in females, which is going to bind up with the lowest affinity estrogen, but with the highest affinity androgens. So if you have lower SHBG as a trans athlete because you are a biological male at birth, and you're using medications to suppress function, you are, potentially you might be, first of all, the total testosterone cutoff is already fucking ridiculous, but your free testosterone is going to be disproportionately superior to females too, to the effect that you could have a who knows, 5-10 times higher free testosterone level than a girl you're competing against, simply because you have way lower binding globulin production than them because you're a fucking biological male at birth who then transitioned to female afterwards. So not only is the total completely unfair, but the sex hormone binding globulin is not being taken into account at all. Like, are you taking medications that are forcing your binding protein production up too? No, like you're just taking anti-androgens and maybe a fucking bit of estrogen. Like, I don't know exactly what she's taking, but at the end of the day, the hormone profile that it equates to is not fair. This cutoff is fucking massive, dude. Like, this is way higher than what a normal endogenous production in females is. And above and beyond that, the disproportionately high free test. Like, this is a huge reason why guys on TRT can maintain more muscle mass than a guy who has an equivalent total T level naturally. It's not just about this steady state bleed. Like, of course it is. A lot of it too is the fact that you don't have these dips and fluctuations when it comes to, bad sleep, bad, diet and stuff, because you're literally fucking injecting T. But in addition to that, you get a disproportionately lower SHBG when you administer exogenous androgens, and oftentimes this can lead to a disproportionately higher free testosterone in individuals who are on exogenous TRT, consequently leading you to be able to have more freely circulating androgens to target tissues than the natural equivalent with like a 700 nanogram per deciliter total as a natural is not going to equate to the same muscle building outcomes as a 700 nanogram per deciliter guy injecting exogenous T. Obviously everything else being equated, genetics, fucking diet, fucking everything. So anyways, this 288, we're looking at like 5-6 times higher than what a female would naturally produce. Above and beyond that, the sex hormone binding globulin is going to differ greatly just based upon what you're born with, and then what you're actually producing based on your biology. And then the result of that downstream is going to be less testosterone and DHT bound up to that binding globulin, consequently resulting in not only the total T being way higher because you have that just, biologically, but in addition to that, the disproportionately high freely circulating androgens, which are literally going to the target tissues to do their shit. So you have these females that not only are dealing with 5 times lower total test, but they have a fucking disproportionate disadvantage above and beyond that on a whole nother layer with their free T being bound up like a motherfucker because they have way higher binding globulin production than Laurel Hubbard. So it's just a fucking disaster of a situation. And for anyone to claim there's no performance advantage when the hormone profile is like not even close to equated is just absolutely fucking mind-boggling to me. I made my way to a Daily Mail article. I don't know if they have anything that useful above and beyond what I've already ranted about, but there was some interesting talk about that I glanced over about some of the arguments I've already made, to be honest, about and the fucking pop-ups on this site are fucking ruthless, dude. 8,000 eggs, 2,000 chicken fillets, tart cherries, and Love Island. Secrets to keeping 37 hungry lions fit to take on South Africa. All right. I was getting fucking distracted on this site. Let's see, where is the part I was looking at? Oh yeah, if you have been through a male puberty, then you are going to have height advantages, of course, bigger heart, bigger lungs, which will not be affected by testosterone suppression. That is indeed true. And he added, the science is becoming increasingly clear there are retained advantages even after testosterone suppression. So a lot of this is the infrastructure you build in your teen years as you go through puberty. Like, you're going to have lower estrogen levels, higher androgen levels. You're going to have disproportionate growth in certain tissues in the body, including bones, including your fucking limb length, shit like this, lung capacity, oxygen carrying capacity, a higher fucking hematology profile in general, perhaps. A lot of this stuff is going to be dictated. You're not fucking bleeding out of your goddamn vagina because you have your androgens creating more fucking red blood cells. Like, I don't know how that's not a topic that's come up too. Like, the fact that you don't have to have fucking periods and you don't end up bleeding and you don't end up having this loss of fucking essential blood for oxygen carrying capacity you could otherwise be using for a performance enhancing advantage too. Like, you're literally retaining, like, should part of this equatedness not be like forcing you to get a therapeutic phlebotomy to match what fucking females have to deal with? Like, I don't understand that part whatsoever. then the question becomes now, like especially in endurance events, like that's probably a fucking massive thing. The science is becoming increasingly clear there are retained advantages even after testosterone suppression. Then the question becomes how, in light of that science, does a sport governing body juggle the competing priorities of fair competition, safety, and inclusion? And that can differ depending on the level. And by the way, like me getting heated over this is like, it's not really reflecting on like what I think they should do or what is fair necessarily. Like, I just don't think there's really, okay, I'm saying what is fair and what's not fair. I'm saying it's unfortunately not fair for trans athletes. I'm not shitting on the trans athletes necessarily. I'm more so saying that I don't think they should be allowed to compete, but it also sucks for them because it's like, where do you compete? You're not going to be able to perform as well against men because you were literally like fucking up your hormone profile too by taking, anti-androgens, exogenous estrogen, etc. And when I say fucking up, I mean in a performance context, it's going to hinder your performance as evidenced by Laurel's numbers getting worse over the years. However, you're going to retain significant performance advantages over biological women to the point where you're kind of in this weird in-between phase where you don't really know, like, where do you compete, Like, it's going to be unfair for you if you're competing against men as a trans athlete, unfortunately. So you're going to be at a significant disadvantage trying to compete against men. And then when you're competing against women, you have a giant advantage to the point where it's, you're going to be frowned upon regardless, to be honest. So it's like, I don't know, I guess maybe you wouldn't be frowned upon if you competed against men. It would just be seen as like you probably just unfortunately would not stand much of a chance. In the majority of cases, depending on the sport, obviously, and depending on how gifted you are and whatnot, and like what you can make up for with that, the lack of hormones and whatnot. But in general, you can kind of like see where I'm coming from is it's unfair for them to compete against women. I think we can all kind of get behind that. But it's like, what is the answer? Like, I don't really have an answer, to be honest. I just don't think they should be able to compete against biological females, unfortunately for them. And I don't know what they should do, I don't know what the solution is for inclusivity to allow trans athletes to have, somewhere to compete and for it to be a fair playing field. So I'm not really sure what the answer is on that. I just know that the way they lay out the hormone profile, like there's this cutoff and this and that, and there's like not much of an advantage. Like, to me, it seems like complete bullshit. And even when you delve into the hormone profile, it's definitely not manually equated the same way they try and make it out to be in some of these, like cutoff outlines and whatnot. So anyways, in light of the science, does a sports governing body juggle the competing priorities of fair competition, safety, and exclusion? And that can differ depending on the level at which the sport is played and the nature of the particular sport itself. It might be very different in Sunday league football compared to the Olympics. It is up to the individual sport to consider the science and their policy goals, take a position, and if necessary, regulate. The IOC has transgender eligibility guidelines for sports that do include testosterone suppression measures, but they are very much that. They are guidelines. They say it is up to individual sports to determine what eligibility criteria are required. So yeah, obviously, I think that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you learned something, found it interesting from the hormone discussion, getting into the binding globulin and free testosterone levels and whatnot, how it compares to females, the total testosterone equivalents in nanogram per deciliter, anything else you think is relevant, or, helps the algorithm, comment it down. It's much appreciated when you guys drop the comments. Like, subscribe if you appreciate this kind of content. You want to see more deep dives into endocrinology and pharmacology, sports and whatnot. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. Notably, the shirts I wear in my videos, like this one, it is Young LA. They're actually having a big sale right now. I might be a little late on announcing it because this video, I don't know what time exactly it's going to come out this afternoon, or if it's even this afternoon, it's when this video is coming out, but they're having a massive sale right now and they have a lot of good stuff on tanks, t-shirts, shorts, especially for the summer, swim trunks, a lot of good shit that is, becoming a very, very big staple in my wardrobe. To be honest, I've been wearing their track pants to the gym for like 4 years now. Even before I was associated with the company whatsoever, I'd been buying their stuff. especially their tanks and as well as their track pants mainly. And now obviously being a part of them, I've got to try more of their stuff. And they've expanded their catalog pretty extensively. They're becoming pretty popular, and it's kind of cool to see them grow alongside. It's almost like they grow sort of in parallel with Gorilla Mind. Like we have a lot of overlapping athletes, and I'm developing like a pretty good relationship with the company where it's like, you know, mutually beneficial for us to kind of like support each other. So, you know, when you support them, it helps support me. And obviously it has a lot of crossover with the Gorilla Mind stuff, as well as Young LA helps them too, obviously, when you buy their stuff. So if you want some high quality shit for the summer, definitely check out their new drop that is today, and you know, help support me too. So win-win, and get yourself some nice shit. And anything else I'm associated with, it is all in the video description below. There is also a special flavor of Gorilla Mode coming out for July 4th. So prepare for that if you want to get a limited edition flavor that will not be available again. I'll announce it probably on my Instagram. So follow me there at More Plates, More Dates. I'm also on Facebook, Snapchat, not BitChute. Fuck that platform. I'm just saying because it's BitChute. If you're watching this, you got to fix your traffic. Like, I don't know, the traffic it's just not there. Like, how many fucking videos did I put up there and it just never picked up steam? And their upload stuff, it just glitches like a motherfucker to the point where we would have to upload like 6 times before it would work. And after a while, it was just like, fuck it, this website is not working. What else am I on? TikTok, not BitChute, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcast platforms, Spotify, stuff like that. That is linked down in the description below. And anything else I'm associated with is to support the channel. It is all down there, my HRT clinic and whatnot. Yeah, it's all down there. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.